I'm Mariah Bosch. I'm the Vice President of the Chicanx Writers and Artists Association here on campus. Just to give you a little bit of a preview for tonight, I'm going to introduce Ada, and then she'll give a reading, and we'll do a Q&A, which will be run by our president, Esmeralda Gomez. And afterward, we'll have books for sale out in the lobby, thanks to Jefferson and Rudy, and then you can get them signed as well. So we'll have a modest reception of Valentine's Day treats that we picked up at the supermarket. And yeah, it's going to be great. So I'll start by introducing Ada. I'll read her bio and then talk a little bit more. So Ada Limón is the author of 5 books of poetry, including The Carrying, which won the National Book Critics Circle Award for Poetry and was named one of the top 5 poetry books of the year by the Washington Post. Her 4th book, Bright Dead Things, was named a finalist for the National Book Award, a finalist for the Kingsley Tufts Poetry Award, and a finalist for the National Book Critics Circle Award. She serves on the faculty of the Queen's University of Charlotte Low Residency MFA program and the online summer programs for the Provincetown Fine Arts Work Center. She also works as a freelance writer in Lexington, Kentucky. So I have very clear memories of reading Ada Limón's work. I read her poem, Instructions for Not Giving Up, at my grandfather's memorial, and I often share it with my composition students as a reminder to weather, quote, whatever winter did to us, for the coming hope of springtime or of newness. Her collection, The Carrying, is one that I read while staying in a little house on the Central Coast, sitting with my own grieving and taking breaks from writing and exploring a nearby marine reserve to live with those poems. This is to say that Ada's work has the ability to ground you both in your present time and in her own. Her poetry is work that creates and recreates space. I believe poetry has the potential and the ability to do this, and her work is able to create space for grief, time's passage, lasting love, and hope for the coming spring. I'm so honored to bring her here with the help of my colleagues in QA, support from our English department, including Jefferson and Rudy, who are helping us out here tonight, as well as the Instructionally Related Activities Fund for funding. Please join me in welcoming Ada Limón.
Hello. I remembered. Thank you. How are you guys doing? Good. Happy Valentine's Day. It's in my family, it's called my mother's birthday. So it's a very important holiday. I thought I would read 10 poems, and it'll be a mix of new poems and poems from Bright Dead Things. I thought I would begin with a poem about my heart. Adaptation. It was, for a time, a loud twittering flight of psychedelic-colored canaries, a cloud of startle and get out in the ornamental irons of the ribcage, nights when the moon was wide like the great eye of a universal beast coming close for a kill. It was a cave of bitten bones and snakeskins, eggshell dust, and charred scraps of frozen over flame. All the things it has been, kitchen knife and the ancient carp's frown, cavern of rust and worms in the airless tire swing, cactus barb, cut down tree, dead cat in the plastic crate. Still, how the great middle ticker marched on, and from all its 4 chambers to all its forgiveness, unlocked the sternum's door, reversed and reshaped until it was a new, bright, carnal species, more accustomed to grief and ecstatic at the sight of you. And then I'll read a poem that ends this collection, which began when I felt like everyone kept saying, everything's going to get better. You know, it's like, oh, tomorrow is going to be better. Everything's going to get better. And I just had this moment where I thought, but what if it's not? And this poem was what came out of that as a response. The conditional. Say tomorrow doesn't come. Say the moon becomes an icy pit. Say the sweet gum tree is petrified. Say the sun's a foul black tire fire. Say the owl's eyes are pinpricks. Say the raccoon's a hot tar stain. Say the shirt's plastic ditch litter. Say the kitchen's a cow's corpse. Say we never get to see it. Bright future, stuck like a bum star, never coming close, never dazzling. Say we never meet her, never him. Say we spend our last moments staring at each other, hands knotted together, clutching the dog, watching the sky burn. Say it doesn't matter. Say that would be enough. Say you'd still want this. Us, alive, right here, feeling lucky. Thank you so much for having me. That was 2 poems. Thank you. And I'll move on to The Carrying, which is the 5th book. It is such an honor to be here. I believe in the power of Fresno's legacy for poetry. And I think it is a massive hub for not just poetry, but literature that has taken place in this community for so long. So it's just an honor to be here. Because it's my mother's birthday, I thought I would read a poem for my mother. This poem is about when I was quite young. I was diagnosed with scoliosis. Many people have it. Mine's fairly severe, and so there was lots of trying to figure out how to get me not in pain. And this is a poem that came out of that. The Raincoat. When the doctor suggested surgery and a brace for all my youngest years, my parents would scramble to take me to massage therapy, deep tissue work, osteopathy, and soon my crooked spine unspooled a bit. I could breathe again and move more in a body unclouded by pain. My mom would tell me to sing songs to her the whole 45-minute drive to Middle 2 Rock Road and 45-minute back from physical therapy. She'd say that even my voice sounded unfettered by my spine afterward, so I sang and sang because I thought she liked it. I never asked her what she gave up to drive me or how her day was before this chore. Today, at her age, I was driving myself home from yet another spine appointment, singing along to some maudlin but solid song on the radio, and I saw a mom take her raincoat off and give it to her young daughter when a storm took over the afternoon. My God, I thought. My whole life I've been under her raincoat, thinking it was somehow a marvel that I never got wet. I think it's important to write praise poems. We don't praise enough. So that's a poem for praise to my mom. This is a poem for a weed or a flower. Not that weed. Although I could write a poem about that. This is a poem for dandelions. Dandelion insomnia. The big-ass bees are back, tipsy, sun-drunk, and heavy with thick-knitted leg warmers of pollen. I was up all night, so today's yellow hours seem strange and hallucinogenic. The neighborhood is lousy with mowers, crazy dogs, and people mending what winter ruined. What I can't get over is something simple, easy. How could a dandelion seed head seemingly grow overnight? A neighbor mows the lawn, and bam, the next morning there's 100 dandelion seed heads, straight as arrows and proud as cats, high above any green blade of manicured grass. It must bug some folks. A flower so tricky it can reproduce asexually, making perfect identical selves. Bam, another me. Bam, another me. I can't help it. I root for that persecuted rosette, so hyper in its own making it seems to devour the land. Even its name, translated from the French dent de lion, means lion's tooth. It's vicious, made for a time that requires tenacity, a way of remaking the toughest self while everyone else is asleep. I started to feel bad about dandelions. Everyone hates them. uh, I give you a number of poems for a number of reasons. One is just so that you can feel comfortable in the uncontrollable situation that is the poetry reading. And you will know that I'm not going to go on forever. And you can count down. If you don't like what you hear, you can sort of aggressively count down. And if you like what you hear, you can kind of be like, oh, there's two more, you know. Just giving you something, just a little something in the otherwise uncontrollable situation that is the audience-reader relationship. How did I read this poem? I don't know if I need to say anything about this. It's just a true story. Wonder Woman. Standing at the swell of the muddy Mississippi after the urgent care doctor had just said, well, sometimes shit happens. I fell fast and hard for New Orleans all over again. Pain pills swirled in the purse along with a spell for later. It's taken a while for me to admit I am in a raging battle with my body. A spinal column 35 degrees bent, vertigo that comes and goes like a DC Comics villain nobody can kill. Invisible pain is both a blessing and a curse. You always look so happy, said a stranger once as I shifted to my good side, grinning. But that day, alone on the river bank, brass blaring from the steamboat Natchez, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a girl, maybe half my age, dressed for no apparent reason as Wonder Woman. She strutted by in all her strength and glory, invincible, eternal, and when I stood to clap, because who wouldn't have? She bowed and posed like she knew I needed a myth. A woman by a river, indestructible. I always say that's a true story, and then part of me is like, is it? It's New Orleans. You're halfway through. Ta-da! This is a poem I wrote because I have complicated feelings about the national anthem. Because I have complicated feelings about this country. A new national anthem. The truth is, I've never cared for the national anthem. If you think about it, it's not a good song. It's too high for most of us, with the rocket's red glare. And then there are the bombs. Always, always, there's war and bombs. Once I sang it at homecoming and threw even the tenacious high school band off key, but the song didn't mean anything, just a call to the field, something to get through before the pummeling of youth. And what of the stanzas we never sing, the third that mentions no refuge could save the hireling and the slave? Perhaps the truth is every song of this country has an unsung third stanza, something brutal snaking underneath us as we absent-mindedly sing the high notes with a beer sloshing in the stands, hoping our team wins. Don't get me wrong, I do like the flag, how it undulates in the wind like water, elemental, best when it's humbled, brought to its knees, clung to by someone who has lost everything, when it's not a weapon, when it flickers, when it folds up so perfectly you can keep it until it's needed, until you can love it again. into the song in your mouth feels like sustenance, a song where the notes are sung by even the ageless woods, the short grass plains, the Red River Gorge, the fistful of land left unpoisoned, the song that's our birthright, that's sung in silence when it's too hard to go on, that sounds like someone's rough fingers weaving into another's, that sounds like a match being lit in an endless cave, the song that says my bones are your bones, and your bones are my bones, and isn't that enough? It really is a hard song to sing. um, oftentimes you're invited to places because people have reached out in earnest and have really loved your work and have responded to what you have put out in the world. And that is the most remarkable feeling. And then there are times that you get invited places because you have an accent over the O, or you realize that they want you to represent something. And that feels entirely different. So this is a poem that's about the difference between representation and tokenism. The contract says we'd like the conversation to be bilingual. When you come, bring your brownness so we can be sure to please the funders. Will you check this box? We're applying for a grant. Do you have any poems that speak to troubled teens? Bilingual is best. Would you like to come to dinner with the patrons and sip Patron? Will you tell us the stories that make us uncomfortable, but not complicit? Don't read us the ones where you are just like us, born to a greenhouse garden. Don't tell us how you picked tomatoes and ate them in the dirt, watching vultures pick apart another bird's bones in the road. Tell us the one about your father stealing hubcaps after a colleague said that's what his kind did. Tell us how he came to the meeting wearing a poncho and tried to sell the man his hubcaps back. Don't mention your father was a teacher, spoke English, loved making beer, loved baseball. Tell us again about the poncho, the hubcaps, how he stole them, how he did the thing he was trying to prove he didn't do. That's a true story on many levels. But when my father was teaching I'm from Sonoma, California, and he was teaching in a school district in Northern California, and a colleague had said to him that he was uncomfortable parking his car in a certain parking lot of a school district because all the Mexicans would steal his hubcaps. And my father went out being Mexican and stole his hubcaps. And then it wasn't until a month later when they had their next meeting that my father dressed up in a poncho and a sombrero and then pretended he was going to sell the man his hubcaps back. So when my father retired from that particular school district, they actually gave him an engraved hubcap. I'm going to do something that I haven't done before, which is I'm going to read two new poems, and it might be three. And I have written or just finished over the past 2 years working on a project that's 20 pages of poems for the Art for Justice Project, which addresses mass incarceration in the United States. And I was trying for a long time to figure out my way into the poems. And then I realized what I needed to do was think about the way that I do a lot of traveling in South America, particularly in Chile and in Argentina. And I think that they're very aware of how they talk about how they disappeared people during certain regimes. And I thought that's what we're doing. We're disappearing people. And so I finally was able to enter the poems from a place of grief and from the place of the person who is left behind, as opposed to the incarcerated person. So these are short poems, but are from this collection. They're in the third person. The Three Deaths. At the sentencing, a snake of pain roiled inside her veins. She did not faint or scream or sink to the white tile the way Alma did. She stuck her finger in the ripped hole of her pocket's lining. She felt the inside of the wool coat, the nowhere of material, that black hole of seam and stitch. She saw his face, blank, borrowed from the grim bark of a tree. In Mexico, he told her once, there are 3 deaths. First, the one where you learn you will die. Then, the one where you die. And the last is the last time someone says your name. She writes his name inside her coat and then draws her hand back out. She will say it until she no longer knows her own mouth. His name will be her total sum. His third death will never come. What is caged is also kept from us. They come back to you as a sign when someone dies, they say. A dragonfly, some dull moth skimming a mud puddle, a hummingbird in the ditch's goldenrod. But what if they are alive, but not allowed to live? How do they return then? Cricket under the sink for 3 nights straight. Why do we call it a song? The scraping, that needy stridulation, scraper to file, file to scraper. One song is for calling another to scare away. But they all sound the same in the ghost hours of emptiness. He does not come back, and she does not see him in the red bird's black mask or the dreary pinks of another dusk. He is no symbol, no easy animal open. She opens the window to fetch only air. He does not even have a window to open. What it looks like after the rain. A strip of single raindrops drooping from the leafless limb of the small front yard tree. The weight of silence, silvery beads suspended until what? Wind, sun, something shakes. A flurry of greedy beaks at the feeder. 2 unruly ferns in the always empty guest room shedding. A gray light that must be the original gray light, where all gray began. A stack of letters, his handwriting, steady and clear. Cleaner than when he was here. Sterile empty plates, unused mug, a clock that she hates, the cheap face of it, the plastic hands still moving. He never wanted a feeder. You're just gonna feed the rats, he said. And every 2 weeks, she goes to the grocery store for seed. She imagines the birds recognize her. She imagines they call her the lady. She imagines she is also feeding the rats. Thank you. I lied, that was 11 poems.